number 7 is kind of a pickup from our last meeting that we had about the circulation study that we are doing, and there was some discussion last time about the inclusion of bicycle circulation safety elements in the scope of the circulation study. In the study, which looks at traffic analysis and a whole lot of different things, there is one part that does say that they will look at recommendations for mechanisms to encourage or enhance safety for bicycle traffic. These are just recommendations, specifically recommendations for bike lanes or bicycle markings or other things for the streets in the study areas. No, they're in the process of doing it right now. And after the last board meeting, Richard and I had a conversation with Jacobs Consulting, who is doing this project for it. This is a small part of the overall project. Just looking at the overall traffic flow and pedestrian issues and all the things that are going on, mainly in the city center area that are part of that. So on the agenda today is just to circle back around to consider whether we want to continue having them look at this with the recommendations or not. I think in talking with Richard, do you want to say anything about the conversation that we had?
Well, I thought it was really good that we did talk because it was baked in, as we suspected, that they were going to completely have that as a part of the scope without any input on it. So I think it was great that we talked about it.
Well, and I think, I think we asked them the question, is this something that should be done or should not be done in their professional? And basically, in looking at what's going on in other parts of the country, this is a pretty common thing that people are looking at, not just necessarily in downtown areas, but any other development areas that you see people trying to develop. This kind of a trend that seems to be developing. So, but it is obviously these places, they work for us. We don't work for them. And we want to do any reconsideration of asking them to take a look at this. We certainly are prerogative to do that. I don't think it would really need anything from a monetary standpoint. It would just be that they would,
is the product of the circulation study like a menu of options? Do this, here's what happens. If you do that, here's what happens. Or are they supposed to come back and tell us you should do this?
I think they would just say, here's what we suggest. Or here's I guess there may be some option. I don't know to say whether they would say, but I would imagine they'd look at things and say, okay, here's some things for you to consider. But it would be up to.
I think they'd say these might be good corridors for bicycle traffic. These are the mechanisms on this street or that street that would work, given the street width, given the speed of traffic, the amount of traffic. These are the things we recommend on these streets if you're going to consider these safety measurements.
I'm just saying, I've assumed all along we were going to get something that had some recommended direction to it. That it wasn't going to be a take it. We've studied it, trust us, here's what we should do.
Well, I think we also need to remember that those recommendations that would come forth from the study would come back to this body. We don't have implementation power to implement any of those things. So I think it would be information coming to us for us to digest. And then if we so choose, if the body so chooses, to make recommendations to the city potentially out there for some, all, maybe parts, to be determined how that would flow uphill. But again, we're kind of in the back. I see us as in the back gathering kind of mode at this stage to educate ourselves with the best available information we can put on the table and let us digest that and come to understand. And that we feel that there is some recommendation to the city, then that's our role as the DAI.
Well, the Cheers Board is constantly involved in this research, so I'm looking at it as a resource for the next guy that walks in the room and says, help me do the facts. We want a broader picture of what what happens to the 2X.
However, let's remember that in the past we have said that, and been once learned, twice smarter. Once it's in there, it becomes cast in concrete. So I think it's important to be discussing and make sure that we're going in the right direction. Instead of just throwing a whole bunch of things out there and then all of a sudden they are here and cannot be changed and won't be changed. So, to me, this gets back to this convenient access to downtown Amarillo that's so important. And as we chip away at it, it is a danger to what we're trying to do down here. And it can drive people out of downtown as well as bring them in. So let's just throw out everything and have it there. It scares me to death.
In your packet are a couple of items that were sent to me from people in the community as they saw on our agenda that this was being discussed and for the board's consideration. And some of the people are here today, and I would like to, as a privilege, I think these people are concerned about it. We're a public entity, funded by public money, and I had a couple of people approach me with the interest of talking to this board just for a very short period of time to express their opinions on this issue. And if you please the board, I would like to allow them to have just a short period of time just to talk with us. We don't, unlike the city commission, we haven't necessarily set up the rules and regulations on how many minutes you get or those kinds of things. I would ask if anybody would want to come forward and talk. They're certainly welcome to, and to be able to do that and make their points in a succinct manner, I think would be great. But if anybody particularly...
we're pleased that somebody found our meeting.
Well, actually, it's the first time we've been outnumbered. So, but I know I received an email from Ellie Early and from Ken Graham, and at this time, if anybody would like to make any comments, how about you want to go first?
Sure. My name's Ellie Early. I'm John Early's daughter, if you know him in town. And I'm starting a community organization with some other bicyclists in the area called Community Amarillo Bicycle. And our mission is to provide reliable bicycle transportation to the working poor, kids, students, and all the people in the Amarillo area. And we're looking for a building to set up in and a church to be under the board of, or if we don't find another church or nonprofit, then we'll form our own nonprofit. And we're basing our model off of other organizations in cities like Memphis and Chicago and Austin and Berkeley to take in donated bicycle parts and frames and then have people come in and help us sort those frames and clean stuff up, and then they build a bicycle. They may pay some money or they may not. We'll have to see what works out for this area and how we get bicycles out. And I wanted to come to the meeting and say we're interested in having downtown be accessible and safe for our bicycle community here. And we're also looking for space, and so if you know of a space in the downtown area or anyways, the neighborhoods we're trying to reach are like downtown and on either side of downtown, so north of I-40. And so we're looking for a building, and please talk to me if you have any ideas about that, and thank you for your consideration in having bicycles be a part of your plans and development and access.
Could I ask you a question? How do you define safe?
I think if a 7-year-old can feel safe going as many blocks as they can and coming back safely without running into cars and without having simple traffic lights and that sort of thing, I think that is the top of safe. And so,
do you have the 7-year-old?
No, I do not.
Perhaps you might use 12 years old.
Well, but I remember when I was 5, my dad made a map for me to go to the grocery store, and I picked up eggs when I was 5 on my bicycle, still on training wheels. And that was like a mile away, and it took probably the whole afternoon. But I think it was a good rite of passage, and my dad made sure it was safe, and I think that it's possible for a city to have those mechanisms and the right safety.
I didn't realize Ellie was here. The story about Mr. Fuquay digging the Belder Canyon was her grandfather's story.
Oh, it was.
Be careful what you talk about. Well, thank you so much.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
You have plenty of stories.
Yeah, they have a lot of stories.
Sure. My name is Kenneth Graham. I'm the president of Share the Road. We've been in operation here since August of 2010, and we've been fortunate to have a lot of support from several of you in the room here to support us monetarily and also vocally through the media. I appreciate the fact that y'all are looking into bicycle circulation. As Mr. Ware mentioned, safety. I did prepare about a 2-page memo here with bullet points that I won't read to you in detail because I know that you can do that on your own, but I want to point out a couple of things, jumping down the list a little bit. Oftentimes I hear that or read that people don't want to come downtown because they can't find a parking place. I don't think that's an accurate statement. I never have a problem finding parking down here. But with that said, if you choose to ride a bicycle downtown, there's no issue really in finding a place to park your bicycle. And quite frankly, the more people that ride their bicycles downtown, the more parking spaces are freed up. So if my wife and I ride our bicycle from Olson Park, where we live downtown, to have dinner someplace, then that's one free space that we're not using. If I meet somebody else down here, 2 or 3 riders down here, that's 2 or 3 spaces that are free then for people who want to park their car downtown. So from a marketing standpoint, I see that as a real advantage. I've talked to Melissa several times about this. To me, bicycling and walking in a neighborhood, whether it's downtown or Olson Park or Wolfland or whatever neighborhood, to me that shows a vitality. It shows the community is alive in that area. And so that the more that we encourage people to move around downtown in a visible way, either on foot or on a bicycle, I think that brings more vitality to our neighborhoods. Bicycles are already a part of the downtown fabric. I think on any day of the year, you could probably go over to the public library and see bicycles parked over there. Many of those bicycles are probably ridden by people who don't understand bicycle safety, who use bicycles for their sole means of transportation. But so bicycles are already here, and the more we can do to encourage bicycles being used in downtown, I think the better off we're going to be. We need to provide bicycle racks that are modern bicycle racks. And I referred in my memo to these 50 styles bicycle racks that we all used as kids at the elementary school. And oftentimes those bicycle racks are backed up against the wall. Those are 2-sided bicycle racks, and when you push them up against the wall, all of a sudden you decrease the capacity by 50%. And that style really does not lend itself to security. People who are worried about their bicycles being stolen need a secure way to lock up the bicycle. And those old-fashioned racks really don't serve the purpose. They won't hold the bicycle in an upright manner. But there are designs that can be used to alleviate that situation.
How many bicycle racks are downtown?
Well, I don't have a count of that. One of the things that I would urge the city to do is to have a bicycle pedestrian coordinator, at least on a part-time basis, to study this sort of thing. But I believe there's one in City Hall.
Like how
I know there's one at the public library.
And we have one. Somebody said it was the only private one.
Chase Building put one in on the north side of their building right after the Ground Cafe opened up.
Oh,
bicycle friendly. And I'm pretty sure that bike rack at the Chase Building came about because people were taking their bicycles inside the building, into the elevator, going up to the, and I mean, who wants to deal with a bicycle and when you're dressed in business clothes? I understand that. But
I think maybe with the WT facility being in there were some bikers that are part of the WT.
Absolutely. And you look at bicycles being efficient. Bicycles being an efficient means of transportation. I know many of y'all in the room are intimately familiar with the Amarillo Comprehensive Plan. Chapter 4 deals exclusively with mobility. In the very first paragraph of this entire chapter, there's a sentence that reads, "A well-planned and managed transportation system should provide options both in terms of ways to move around the city, driving via transit and by bike or on foot, and multiple alternative paths to get places." And I think that's what this group is looking at today, not knowing about the prior conversations or where this study is going. But, this is a plan that came about as a result of multiple meetings with the community in different quadrants of the city and with the help of an expert, and it's been adopted by the city government. The other part of this plan that I found useful is that one of the suggestions is that how to go about implementing something like this in a city that's 125 years old or maybe older. I don't know, Dr. Benton's not here to remind me when Amarillo was founded, but the idea is that you start doing this piece by piece, small area planning. And I know it's exactly what y'all are looking at, but it's not small. It's, I guess, more medium-sized as you look at the central business district and the scope of your work. But when you start breaking down neighborhoods or the CBD, working at different components of it, whether it's pedestrian lighting, bulb outs, bicycle circulation, whether it's bicycle lanes or bicycle routes, and I'd be happy to tell you all about bike lanes and bike routes in Amarillo. I think that's one way to tackle these wonderful suggestions that we've said, hey, we embrace this. We want to do this. So please keep in mind that chapter. The word bicycle in chapter 4 appears 51 times. That's probably 10 times as many times as it appeared in the last long-range plan. Pardon me?
Not that you're counting.
No, I didn't want to go back that far in history, quite frankly. It would have been too frustrating. I think the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that as a city, Amarillo, I think, is making great strides with alternative modes of transportation, bicycling and walking. But at the same time, we seem to have one foot in the past. And I'll point out every bridge in town that crosses every railroad track in town is either expressly prohibited to be used by a pedestrian or a bicyclist. Period. You can't be on there. Or you can be on there in a limited fashion. And just, if you'll drive over to the bridge that's been completed over on Ross Street, north of I-40, you'll see what I'm talking about. You can move one way on a bike if you're on foot, on a bicycle. If you're going, that's north, there's a sidewalk. If you're going south, you can't be on that side of the road. And how children get from Emerson Elementary across the 4-lane traffic is beyond me. But that's what we have, in one form or another, it's what we've allowed to occur here in Amarillo. And I think that with a tool such as a comprehensive plan, with the emphasis that y'all are putting on bicycle and pedestrian mobility, we can all work together to help the city and help TxDOT, help the counties remember that there's different ways to move around town, whether you're looking for transportation, recreation, or just want to just get out and tool around in the neighborhood. In closing, I'd point out that I was really interested in the slides that Melissa showed about Potter County, the courthouse. Each year for the past 8 years, we've had a community bicycle ride here called the Ride of Silence. Melissa's done it. I don't know if anybody else several folks over here on this side of the room have done it. That ride, the Ride of Silence, draws about 150 to 200 people, and we moved that route around town for a couple of different reasons. One is I want to make sure that people understand that if you want to ride a bicycle for transportation, it's pretty easy to use collector streets to move from one neighborhood to another neighborhood without being on an arterial street. And in doing so, you're going to go by city parks, you can access libraries, you can access schools, you can access oftentimes commercial business districts in a safe manner on a bicycle. And I'll be happy to answer that question you had, Mr. Weir, about safety. But this year, I'm pretty sure we're going to move Ride of Silence back downtown. We did it at City Hall a few years ago to show support for the hike and bike plan the city has. But I think this year we're going to try to start it at Potter County at the courthouse.
Lots of places to sit.
Lots of places to sit. And I know, I think Amarillo National has some parking lots around there that sure would come in handy for us, those people that want to drive to the ride and ride from there. And just on a side note, that Share the Road, I think one of the things that we found to be successful is just working with other folks. And so we'll be working with Potter County if we choose that location. And I've been having conversations with Commissioner Kelly about some other bicycling projects in Potter County. So we look forward to bringing another 150, 200 bicycle riders down here today.
Jim, could I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that bicycle lanes are inappropriate in certain areas?
Well, that's an interesting question. I just went to a bicycle summit in Oklahoma City with Gary Holwick. I paid for my way, the city paid for Gary's way. And the keynote speaker there at that Oklahoma Bike Summit was the planner, the traffic engineer for the city of Chicago for 30 years. And his name is John LaPlante. He's retired. He's a professional consultant. But Mr. LaPlante, if I understand him correctly, believes that bicycle lanes can be used on all types of streets, whether it's a residential street, an arterial street. But with that said, there are specific spacing requirements that have to be taken into consideration. Do you allow parking on the street? What's the width of the lane? What's the posted speed limit? Mr. LaPlante says that there's no reason for speeds to be any greater than 35 miles an hour in the metropolitan area. We don't practice that. We have 35 miles an hour in a residential area, 30 posted, and up to 50, 55 miles an hour. So,
do you think downtown in Amarillo that there are places that it would not be appropriate to have a bicycle on?
I just have to look at the street. Are you asking me about the U.S. highways that run north and south through town? Is that what you have in mind?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that Amarillo's downtown is different from many other cities because we do have 4 arterial streets running through the middle of it.
Right.
And that gives us tremendous access. 5,000 people drive down to work and out via those each day.
Right.
So, if you're talking about 20 bicyclists or however many there are now, say there are 200 later, would it be safer if they were not exposed to high traffic areas, especially that have a lot of trucks?
I ride a bicycle around town pretty often, not as much as Tony here, who rides every day on my bicycle. I occasionally will get on the arterial street, whether it has a bicycle lane or not. Bicycles have a right to those roads. I understand when push comes to shove, in a collision, a bicycle's going to lose every time. Every time. Sometimes they lose more than the bicycle. The bike lanes, I think, help slow down speeds on streets and help define to motorists and bicycle riders what the expectation is for where a bicycle is going to be. I'd be glad to be part of more conversations about how bicycle lanes or routes can be put in place downtown. I'm disappointed that phase 1 of our hike and bike plan excludes downtown. Excludes it. I think it's going to be
if you feel that slowing down traffic would be one of your goals too, and if say I'm on the other side and want to have better access to downtown, how do we come to some kind of a agreement that both of us can support?
The speed limit downtown at maximum is 35 miles an hour, right? On the U.S. highways. So the reduced speed, I think, is already there everywhere. But I'm not saying we need to have bike lanes on every street. I'm saying we need to have some bike routes defined in some manner, which could be on pavement markings with devices, symbols called sharrows that indicate to a pedestrian, to a bicycle rider in a car that this is a bike route without a bike lane being.
Okay, so bike routes would be a limited part of the downtown grid, the immediate downtown grid, you're saying?
Absolutely.
And to get a bike route, a bike lane, what do you have to do up to that street?
Get a bike lane?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you look at the width of the street. Is parking allowed against the curb? If the parking is allowed against the curb, then the bike lane comes out and away from that parking area. All right, and then you look at how many feet are left in those travel lanes. Mr. Taylor Withrow, would be better equipped to talk about the specific widths of all these streets down there.
One that concerned me, the consultants, and I got the feeling was baked into our deal. They said, you have 12-foot wide lanes in downtown. We'll cut those to 11 and have a 3-foot bike lane, whether you have parking or not. And I just got to thinking, you take these arterial streets and make them narrower. We're going to have bulb outs out in them. Then we're going to have narrower lanes, and we're going to have Indianapolis 500 Speedway with these trucks and people trying to get in and out of downtown. So that concerns me that bikes might not fit in places like that. Or if they do, then the cars may not fit.
I think the bicycle lane is 6 foot, not 3 foot. So that's even more. Right. But with that said, now granted you don't have cattle haulers at Polladero Canyon State Park, but that road out there, Park Road, I think is 10-foot travel lanes. And you see bicycle riders out there all the time on the road bikes coexisting with others who are driving 35 miles an hour there's some hills out there coming up off those water crossings, limited side views.
My boys are there every day, so yeah. So would you recommend a 6-foot bike lane in these corridors and no parking on one side of the street, or how would you get your lane?
I can't solve that problem for you right here, right now. Again, you take a look at where are you trying to move bicycle riders? Are you trying to move them to Rock Island Rail Trail, into downtown, and to the ballpark, or to the library?
Which would largely be east-west kind of.
Right. Well, if you think about Southwest Amarillo, you're talking about the east side now, it's a different direction. But that is just as an example because the Rock Island Rail Trail is part of the bicycle plan.
And it stops at 8, is that right?
7 and Crockett.
7.
Yeah. But I think to answer your question adequately, this is what we did with Vicky Covey and with Taylor Withrow. We sat down at a table. They knew what the street widths were. They knew where parking existed and didn't exist.
And they will know traffic.
Pardon?
And they will know traffic.
Absolutely. But 5,000 cars a day, you may be accurate about that, but in Southwest Amarillo, it's 35 and 50,000 cars a day in intersections out there. And you could safely, on a bicycle, move around 34th and Merrill. I do it a lot. The traffic count there's probably 35 to 40,000 cars a day.
Yeah.
And I'll do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, go get coffee. And I stick my hand in and I put a helmet on. So would I take a 5-year-old out there? Not on their own bike. I would pull a 5-year-old behind my bike. I've done it before. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else that would want to speak?
I had a question about the consulting. Is it Jacobs Consulting that's doing the traffic research gathering? So when will they have all of their information in, or?
We've just done the traffic counts just a couple of weeks ago. We're waiting on a couple others because of the construction that's going on downtown. They've held off on this component or to make a decision on it, but they'll move forward. It shouldn't take but about 6 weeks or so. Okay.
And they're counting cars and bikes, or they're counting cars?
Vehicular traffic.
Okay. And do you have research gathering
You
for
know Melissa has
bicycles?
a motor scooter, don't you? We're anticipating large lanes for Vespas.
All right. So as of now, this is in the scope. If we so desire to change our minds on it, now would be the time to speak up.
Wes, I would move that we ask our consultants to be sensitive to access to downtown and convenient automobile access on the arterial and busy streets that serve the downtown business area. And I mean, my thought would be that we make sure that we do not have bicycles on the arterial streets and the busy cross streets where the major traffic is, that we try to encourage some safe location instead of some place that's going to get somebody seriously hurt.
Just briefly, yes.
I haven't owned a car for 12 years, and I've never been hit, and that's because I conduct myself in a vehicle manner. I obey all traffic laws and all traffic rules, and I ride on every street in town. And I believe if the cyclists, along with bike lanes and the sheriff, anyway, I believe if the cyclist conducts himself in a manner as you would in a car, I think safety is the main factor behind it. And I've never been hit. And I believe it's because I conduct myself the same as anybody else would if they're driving their car. So a lot of the accidents that you are perceiving are people running stop signs or stop lights. So I don't really think we need to keep cyclists off of any specific street. They're going to ride there anyway. It's just how that's going to be, I guess. But I mean, maybe just a sign. We don't necessarily need a bike lane, but maybe just put a share the road sign, letting people know that there's going to be somebody there. I don't know. That's just.
How'd you ride to downtown today?
I live near 10th and Bowie, so I came down 10th. I rode 10th all the way to Fillmore's two-way, and I came right down Fillmore.
Fillmore's
Fillmore's a
all
one-way
the
this way, right?
arterials are one way.
Okay, so I just came straight down Fillmore to here. And when I leave, I don't know what the street is right here, but I'll take it to the very next, I'm sorry, 8. So I'll take 8 to the next street that will head south for me, so I can get back home. But I think we can just get a message across the cyclists need to conduct themselves like vehicles, because we are vehicles, not automobiles, but we're vehicles. And most of the accidents that I've seen have been because cyclist is not conducting himself in the manner he should be, and so accidents happen.
What's your name? Sorry?
Tony.
Tony.
My last name is ARCABASCIO.
Tony, don't you think in the past few weeks or months that cyclists have gotten a lot more cautious and are probably acting like what you're talking about?
Yes, sir, I do, simply because of the
The
accident.
accidents have just scared people to death.
They do scare people. I know cyclists who are serious cyclists who won't, they back off for a month or two after someone dies. And, that's the same for people in cars. If you accidentally run a stoplight or a stop sign, you pay attention for the next couple of days. It's just close attention, and you come to a complete full stop. And this is the same thing for everybody. I just think cyclists need to understand more than anything, they need to conduct themselves in the manner of a car. So,
Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. Anybody, any other? So what was your motion again now?
Well, that we asked the consultants to avoid bicycle lanes on the arterial streets and the busy cross streets.
Well, would it be better to ask them to give us some clear recommendations as to what are the main avenues of ingress and egress to the city that if we wanted to promote getting in and out of downtown, these would be the ones not one clog.
Well, but we know that. I mean, we've been driving downtown for 40 years.
Well, I don't know if we do or not, because we're also talking about closing some streets and maybe going from one way to two way. And so the circulation study, that's really what it's all about, is telling you how to get from here to there. And so if what we want to preserve is ease of access in and out, then don't we want them to come back with some recommendations about these are your main ways of getting in and out. These are the ones you don't want to screw up.
I mean, if what you're talking about is not a change in scope, they're already looking first and foremost at vehicular circulation specifically and especially around the city center area. So it's not a change in scope. They're already doing that. They're already going to look at vehicular circulation as well as the others, but vehicular is going to come first in the sense that we've got to make sure that vehicular traffic moves as easily as possible.
Well, I'm not trying to speak for Richard, but what I hear him saying is he's most concerned about not losing what we have, which is ease of access. And those are some specific places, but is that going to change? Where are those places?
So part of their existing scope.
So they're not all just going off belief, traffic study that says, here's where cars are.
That's part of the scope. Right now.
Thinking like an accountant, I think cost benefit, and there's going to be cost to making it more accessible to bicycles, and I don't necessarily mean with dollars, because it may be just paying on the road, but you're going to, it seems to me you can't have what we have now without some, if you make it more accessible to bicycles, it's somewhat less to cars. And that, and then your other keeping bicycles off those arterial streets, because they are full of cattle haulers, and like the guy in the truck this morning that was texting as he was driving cattle hauler.
Hitting all our hot bus
Truck coming downtown. That was scary, even a car, not to mention a bicycle. And what I want is to be able to look at that, and of course, Gary points out it won't be our decision, and we'll advise it, move it to somebody who does. But I'd like to know what the options are. Your point's well taken, Richard, that And surely these guys, I mean, that's what they do, is study traffic, know that they're cattle haulers.
And these guys have been given instructions, though. It's been baked into this thing. Pedestrian safety, some of these other things, and vehicle access is, I think, been underserved by a bunch of out-of-town people that don't live here.
I think vehicle access has been overserved in downtown for many years, which is why we have not redeveloped downtown. We will not redevelop downtown. Now, we are perfect at the 9 to 5, and if all we want to do is whatever downtown can bring us at 9 to 5, then we're good and ready to go. What we are not good at is after 5 o'clock, because people don't feel safe in moving from one place to another. And just as in residential areas, we're not going to get residential people to move down here unless they feel safe, and there are good ways to move from one place to another. I don't think, I just don't think we'll ever, I think common sense would tell you cars are a priority downtown. I don't think they're going to be any different, but I think, and we don't know what hopefully might happen to these arterial streets in years to come. I don't think we're just looking at this just now and what's in here and now, but, what if something happens further down the road and traffic is moved around this area, not through downtown, but somewhere else?
Well, I can hear what Richard, I think, is saying is that are they just going to bring something to us as they've been instructed? Or are they going to bring all the facts here for us to review?
I haven't instructed them.
Well, I'm just asking the question.
Well, I think we'll tell them to bring the facts, and when they come, if we feel facts are missing or not, it'll be our job to ask the questions that are not included in it.
But they're not going to bring. Are they going to bring recommendations to us?
Well, I think they will. I think they will bring recommendations to us. I mean, that's why we hired them.
If it comes back in the form of, I don't know what form it's going to come. It comes back in the form of 3,000 cars a day go down this street, and if you put bicycle lanes in here, it's going to make X happen. I think that's the information we want back.
In my language, cost benefit.
A cost benefit analysis that someone else can judge, not these guys we just hired. So what I'm expecting is we get data back, and then their expertise on recommendations as to what the data means. It's not their decision as to whether bicycle lanes go there or not go there.
What we're looking for, I think, when it's all said and done, is the most appropriate way to accommodate the variety of uses out there, from a safety standpoint, from a traffic, meeting the traffic needs, the vehicular traffic needs, and trying to gather the information that allows us to make the most intelligent decisions we can moving forward as it relates to meeting multiple objectives at once. And just personally, I can't imagine that we would end up with suggestions, and certainly I didn't see a community implementing suggestions that would encourage bicycle traffic to run up and down the 4 dispersal streets. I just don't see that as probably a product of all this at the end of the day, because that probably doesn't make good sense. But to encourage north-south traffic on Polk Street or Tyler Street, that's what we're looking for, I think. How do we put all of these things in the mix and meet multiple objectives? We have huge, in my mind, we have huge capacity in terms of our streets, our width of streets, the grid system in downtown Amarillo to accommodate, I think, satisfactorily and safely multiple objectives. And I would hope that the study would help us along the way in terms of finding out how we can do that to at the end of the day meet everybody's objectives. We forget too, the greatest Polk Street has not always been striped the way Polk Street is striped now. Once upon a time, there were 2 northbound lanes and 2 southbound lanes with parking on either side and no left turn lanes.
No beer trucks in the middle of the street.
No beer trucks in the middle of the street.
The trolley line used to go up and down.
Yeah. So that's changed over the years, and so that just kind of goes to show you as time progresses, there can be changes. We all need to come to it. So I just feel as though that what we're looking for here is good data. We're looking for good information so that we can make intelligent decisions to do the best we can to accommodate multiple objectives here. But we need that information
Jacob said on the phone that they didn't foresee 5 lanes on those materials, that it's too fast maybe, without having looked in depth at it, that didn't seem like a likely scenario, and I agree, I don't think it's a likely solution.
We didn't foresee bulb outs on the arterials either. They're here.
I did, and I think we did. We voted on it, or the board voted on it, so that's something we voted on 2 years ago.
So, is it the consensus of the board that we just tell them, don't forget about the vehicles, or
I think we just tell them to bring us the information they find that we ought to consider. That's what I'm looking for. Doesn't bring anything different.
No. And is that what they're doing now? I mean, do we need something? That's fine.
I think it's semantics. It's interpreting the data versus recommendations or whatever. They're going to say, here's the traffic count, here's the streets that might make sense to do something on. Here's what you could do, and here's what you can't do, because there's not enough lane width, and there's, that kind of thing. They have to look at, as Ken said, lane widths and parking, women's parking and so forth.
Well, as you've said before, ultimately we don't make a decision anyway.
And it seems to me that there are opportunities along the way if they've got bicycle bridges running over the arterial streets or whatever to say that's nuts and not that.
I don't think we'll do that, but yeah. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
And we have made poor decisions, I think, probably lacking information. I mean, the idea of those connector overpasses, the one lane, and I guess it's Ross Mirror over here, and there's absolutely nothing over here on Adams Hughes in terms of pedestrian and bicycles. And I'm sure some of those decisions are monetary in terms of trying to break down costs. But I think the more information we have to take a look at this one, including those cuts.
Will we be segued from?
What about horses?
they all go to Dairy Queen, so I think we're good.
Boy, we've got statues of them out here.
I think those horses talking about
I saw horses Sunday.
what route you choose on your bicycle.
Well, Kenneth has a bicycle tile, and I have horseshoes, so we have to have our consistencies today.
There's some crew that rides horses from the north and they go to the Dairy Queen over here.